Am I recording? I think I'm recording now. All right. Chelsea, are you still on?
No, do you want me to be?
So do you want us to go and make sure it says it's recording and then, oh yeah, yeah, I should be recording. And I was gonna say, can those of you who are attending through Zoom, can you let me know if you can hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. We're gonna do our best to keep the camera and voice going as we go, but we're gonna be some different people are participating, so we'll do our best. Well, first of all, good evening. Thank you, Jennifer Payne. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to, I think this is our first State of the School presentation in the 33 years of Salem Montessori School, right? The State of the School, yeah. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means and we're not going to go through an agenda per se, but we're going to talk about why we're doing this, why it's important, and we're going to be coming back to that throughout the presentation. But I wanted to introduce myself first. My name is Robin Howe, or as the students apparently call me, Dr. Robin Howe. Not to confuse with Dr. Robin or Robin Howe, but Dr. Robin Howe. And I work for an organization called the Montessori Foundation. And we are an organization that works with Montessori schools and people all over the world. And a wide range of things, right? From teacher education, working with strategic planning with school leaders, curriculum design, all sorts of things. So right now, working with a project in Iraq, Dubai, Salem Montessori School, Michigan, all over the place. I am myself a Montessori child. So I went to a Montessori school from when I was 2 years old up through 8th grade, the Berry School in Washington, D.C. And my family is very much involved with Montessori. And actually, a lot of you may not know this, even the people I've been working with. My family's been involved with Montessori. And so I grew up literally saying, the one thing I'm not going to do in my life is get into Montessori. And so fast forward from that point, about 15 years out of college. Was I in grad school yet? Out of grad school the first time. And I got the bug. Maybe I call it that. I got the itch. And so I then started my formal Montessori journey by getting my early childhood training. And then I worked in an early childhood class. And then I got the opportunity to work in an elementary class. And I was much younger then. And they said, Robin, do you want to get trained? And I said, sure. Didn't really know what, but somebody wants to pay for me to get educated and go spend a couple summers in Minnesota. I said, that sounds good. So I went, I got my elementary training. And then fast forward a couple years later, they said, hey, Robin, do you want to get your adolescent training? Similar conversation. So then I went back and I spent about a year, well, 2 summers and throughout the year, and right outside of Cleveland, Ohio, getting my adolescent training. So I have experienced Montessori as a student and then as an educator, and then worked for many years at a school as a school administrator. And now I work with schools all over the place. And I also actually have my own school, which is a much longer conversation. It's a middle and high school that we actually, to my knowledge, will be the first online Montessori middle and high school that's Cody accredited, I think, in the world. So that just happened. It's not official yet, but that literally just happened last week. So that's who I am. So I'm happy to be here with you all today and hopefully share some insight, but more specifically, talk to you about your own school. So with that, we'll get started. All right. So, and again, these are going to be talking points. So I will be reading a little bit, but they're mostly going to be talking points. So I don't intend this to be something where I'm talking at you, but something, talking to you. The purpose of this address is to reflect thoroughly on our school, Salem Montessori School's history, provide an honest understanding of our current reality, and share a hopeful vision for the future. It emphasizes our shared responsibility in fostering a thriving educational environment. So, in other words, we want to share with you what's going on. One of the things that often happens with schools, and so not exclusive to Salem Montessori School, is people exist in silos. And we find, especially coming out of COVID, that people have been in their classroom, or in this case, they might even been in their building, and they don't realize what is happening. What is the big picture of what our school is doing at the other levels, at the other campuses? And they don't realize that what we are trying to accomplish is not just existence. So we are not just going through the motions day in, day out, providing care for children. We're actually thinking strategically about where we are right now and what we want to do in the future with goals. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. It is not meant to, go over every line item of a budget or talk about every lesson we're going to ever give, but it's a bird's eye view of where we're at. Make sense? So we're going to get started, and I think Ms. Valerie is going to get started. We're going to start the formal part of this presentation, talking a little bit about, well, the mission of the school and what we're trying to accomplish, and then talking about the past history of the school and what brought us to this point. Ms. Valerie,
You.
let me take your
I'm
chair.
gonna take my seat.
Yeah.
Now, if I stand there, can they see this or?
And they can see you.
Okay, they just can't see that. Okay. So I'm Miss Valerie. I'm the founder and director of Salem Montessori School. And I just want to thank you for being here tonight. It means so much to see our community gathered together. Families, students, our staff, and friends, and all who care deeply about Salem Montessori School. My part this evening is to tell you a bit about our story, our history, where we came from, what has shaped us, and what makes Salem Montessori the school that it is today. I won't bore you with lots and lots of details, but Salem Montessori School opened its doors in March of 1993. We welcomed our first 12 students in a small Cape Cod style home on Roanoke Boulevard. It's the very building that our elementary and middle school occupies today. It truly was a one-room schoolhouse. And we had 2 teachers and a handful of families who took a chance on something different, and a shared belief that children deserve an environment that respects who they are and how they naturally learn. The school was founded to meet the very real need in Salem and Roanoke Valley, a place where children could experience authentic Montessori education in a warm, home-like setting, a place where they would be known, where their independence would be encouraged, and where learning would be joyful and meaningful. From the very beginning, our mission has been to nurture and inspire children, to help them develop curiosity, creativity, independence, and confidence, while also becoming respectful members of a community. That mission has been the touchstone for every major decision we have made over. As interest grew, we added more classrooms, more levels, and eventually a second and then a third campus. What started with 12 students in one room has grown into a thriving Montessori community of nearly 200 students and more than 50 faculty and staff members. Along the way, we have faced same kinds of challenges that many schools encounter: space constraints, changing enrollment patterns, new regulations, and more recently, the upheaval of a global pandemic. Each time we have come back to the same question: what does the child need? What does our mission ask of us? Those questions have guided us as we expanded programs from infants and toddlers to primary, to elementary, and now to middle school. They have guided us as we invested in Montessori training, prepared environments, and outdoor spaces. They have guided us as we partnered with families who, like us, believe that education should support the whole child, academically, socially, and emotionally. I often say that Salem Montessori School has never been just a school building. It's a place, community built by children, teachers, and families over many years. The trust that you place in us and the love and energy you pour into this place are a huge part of why we are still here 33 years later. Tonight, as we celebrate more than 3 decades of Montessori education in Salem, I feel deep gratitude to everyone who has been a part of this story, from those first 12 students to the children who walk through our doors each morning. As we look ahead, we are not starting from scratch. We are building on 33 years of experience, relationships, and shared values. Our new partnership with the Montessori Foundation is an exciting next step in that journey. As we help, it will help us reflect more deeply on what we already do well and where we can grow and how we can continue to become a world-class Montessori school here in Salem, Virginia. I'd like to share briefly what, in my view, makes Salem Montessori unique and why our work matters so much in today's world. Our entire philosophy is centered on the child. Montessori education is described as education for life. And I think that captures it beautifully. We are not just preparing children to perform well on tests or advance to the next grade. We are preparing them to be thoughtful, capable, compassionate human beings. In our classrooms, children work with hands-on material that make abstract ideas concrete. They move, explore, and make choices, and they learn to follow their interest, to persist with challenging work, learn to solve problems, collaborate, and resolve conflicts respectfully. You will see 2-year-olds carefully pouring and 3-year-olds washing the table, 6-year-olds joyfully discovering that big math can be beautiful, and other students designing projects, growing gardens, and planning service work in our community. Underneath all that activity is a deep respect for the child and a belief in children that they are capable of far more than we often assume.
Yeah, you ready to get out too?
Montessori
You're all
school,
done?
some sense of self and the confidence to try their best. Independence balanced with respect.
You all done?
Concentrate, think,
Are you all done?
solve problems creatively.
All done.
Themselves, for others, and for their environment. Affirm action. Just as importantly, in to keep learning. In this fast-changing world, these qualities matter. The children in our classrooms today will grow up to navigate challenges we can't imagine.
All done. Yes.
A safe, joyful place to practice being curious, resilient, and kind. I also believe that one of the greatest strengths in this partnership between home and school, our growth over the years has been made possible by the collaboration of staff and students. We have volunteered, you have volunteered, served on committees, supported events, and asked thoughtful questions, and trusted us with your children. That partnership is at the heart. In a moment, you'll hear more from Dr. Robin about where we are today as a, and how we're planning the future. My hope is that as you listen, you see the threads that run through it all. The child is at the center. The mission of that mission as our guide, and this community walking forward together. Thank you for being a part of Salem Montessori School's story and for helping us imagine its next chapters. Your turn.
Real quick, if you're participating from Zoom, if you wouldn't mind muting your speakers. All right. So Ms. Valerie very eloquently talked about some of these things already, but it's worth just mentioning in case we missed. But yeah, Ms. Valerie, essentially what she was talking about is well, exactly what's here. We aim to foster a lifelong love of learning, support the whole child, so their cognitive, social, emotional, and physical development. So that's one differentiating factor that Ms. Valerie mentioned. Not just about educating the child and giving them some information that they can then regurgitate onto a test, right? It's whole child development. And we want to prepare them to be happy, positive, constructive citizens in the world around them. And also one thing, actually, there's a great phrase I heard a couple days ago, which I don't remember, but we're also know that we're preparing them for a world we can't even yet imagine, right? So what does it mean to enter in this world? We want to train them. We want them to leave our doors being prepared, whatever that means. This was a nice quote that I included earlier, and I think since you just heard from Miss Valerie, you may not need to hear it, but it's probably worth reading. At Salem Montessori School, your child isn't just taught. They are seen, respected, and guided to reach their fullest potential in a nurturing, authentic Montessori environment. And for those, Miss Valerie is very modest, right? She didn't come up here and talk about everything that she's accomplished over 3 years. She talked about starting in one classroom, but really what she has done over the course of these 33 years is remarkable. I work with a lot of schools, and to acquire and, to acquire 3 campuses, to build a school is not easy. Especially, going through everything that she mentioned that we haven't. And so really what she has done is remarkable. And so that's why I think really keeping focus on what her vision is and what her vision was is really important as we think about where we are right now and think about how we're going to extend that into the future. And then she actually explicitly shared what sets us apart. And I think that you mentioned each of these things, but Montessori is a child-centered approach. And for those of you who are not familiar with Montessori, that is a key difference in Montessori and in traditional education. Whereas in traditional education, a teacher is standing up front, kind of like what I'm doing right now, not very Montessori, talking at children. Montessori is child honoring and it's child-centered. Again, we mentioned the interest in the whole child. So again, it may be great that they can get a 1600 on the SAT, but if they're not happy and they're not composed and they don't know how to self-regulate, we're missing the bus. Okay, so this is whole child education. And we don't call this here a graduate profile, but I think it's worth mentioning. We want children, when they leave our program, and this is all relative, so whether they leave at 3 years old, 3rd grade, or 8th grade, or maybe someday 12th grade, we want them to leave with a strong sense of self and confidence to do their best. Again, so that may be different for a 3-year-old than it is for a 13-year-old, but we want them to be confident. We want them to be able to concentrate and think critically, solve problems. Remember what I was just talking about, they're getting ready to, well, they're entering a world that we don't even know about yet. By the time they enter the workforce, they're going to be going into careers that don't yet exist. So they're going to need to be able to solve problems and think critically. Respect for themselves and others. I don't know if there's ever been a time in the history of humanity where that is more important than it is right now, but that's something that we're really working hard to do, and it's deliberate. Okay, Maria Montessori talked about respect. She talked about peace. But right now, I'd say if I had to highlight one right here that I'm really striving for, it's that respect piece. Because if we don't teach respect, now, when they enter the world, it's going to be much harder. And then, of course, we do recognize that we are a school, right? So we have a responsibility as a school to make sure that they're, again, leaving our doors with cultural understanding, cultural literacy. They need to learn how to read and do math and all those things. So when they leave, they're at the very least not at a disadvantage. But we actually far exceed that. Our goal is to have them leave with those basic academic skills, but all these other pieces as well. So whole child education. Okay. That's Montessori in a nutshell. And so Miss Valerie talked about the history, so we're going to move on. And she actually, did you read this? I think you did. You said, we face challenges, constraints, enrollment shifts, regulations, even a global pandemic. But each time we've asked, what does our child need? What does our mission ask of us? You did mention that. And again, like any organization, our mission really is the driving force. Everything that we do should be in alignment with our mission. And I think it's fair to say, and I think somebody mentioned this today, that we as a school are actually in the process of looking at our mission and trying to figure out, okay, is our mission that we started with 33 years ago, is it still consistent with what we're trying to accomplish? Does it need to be tweaked, or does it need to be changed? But any good organization will ask themselves, is this still relevant? And so that's part of what this is. And that's part of why when we get to survey results and talk about that, that's part of why we've been going through this whole exercise, is really trying to figure out, what does Salem Montessori School mean to the community now? What do we need? Where do we go? Because that is uniquely different to the school. And I often say that some people ask about Montessori schools. They say, well, just tell us how to do it. So, well, that's great. But like, every school has its unique personality. And so you could have a Montessori school with 200 students serving infants through 8th grade right next door, and it's going to be entirely different. So this has to be dependent on this particular community. So it has to be in alignment with our mission. Okay, so where are we today? We're going to start with this present community snapshot, but an interesting sort of anecdote, I guess you would say, about this is, somebody mentioned today that they were at an elementary math meeting, and somebody came in from a toddler class, and the parent said, oh, I didn't even know you had elementary, right? So think about that. We have this beautiful 3-campus school serving children, basically up through 15 years old, and people don't realize it. That's why this is really important. We need people to know, and one of the things that I think we need to work on is more integration, but we'll talk about that. But so today, Salem Montessori School serves approximately 187 students from ages 8 weeks through 12th grade. We have 35 students down the hill. Is that what do you call it? Down the hill? Down the hill in the infant room. Have you ever used that?
No.
Oh, Oh. Down, we have 35 infants down the hill on the entire campus. I mean, it is in fact down a hill, isn't it? I mean, or, and at that infant toddler campus, we also have 38 toddlers. And in Montessori language, infant toddler programs really mean anything through birth through roughly 3 years old when they're developmentally ready to move into the early childhood. Then our largest group is the early childhood class, which consists of 5 classrooms. And we have 85 students. And then, believe it or not, we actually do have an elementary program. Actually, raise your hands. How many of you, if I said, it's just a little litmus test, how many of you could tell me what an elementary program at Montessori, what grades they include? I'm just curious.
Cheating, we have kids.
All right, well, that's fair, but I mean, that's why this is important. So traditionally in Montessori, elementary, and I won't go down too far down this rabbit hole because then it really will be a late night. Elementary is typically in Montessori 1st grade through 6th grade, otherwise known as that second plane of development. So, I mean, as I said, 1st grade through 6th grade. It is typically, not always, broken up into lower and upper elementary classrooms. Lower elementary being 1st through 3rd grade, upper elementary being 4th through 6th, but it is one continuum of curriculum. And actually, all of these levels are meant to be continua of each other. That's an important piece too. But again, that's Montessori 101 that happens from 10 o'clock tonight to 12 o'clock tonight. So we have 11 students in lower elementary, 14 students in upper elementary, and then we have a very small yet thriving boutique adolescent program with 5 students. Adolescent programs in Montessori language, it's kind of like middle school. So, except most public schools go from 6th grade. We start really at 7th grade, 7th and 8th grade. And do you have some 9th graders?
Not yet.
Not yet, but we're going to talk about that later. But some Montessori schools have adolescent programs that include 9th graders. And if they have a high school, they often do 7, 8, 9 in one group. So keeping that 3-year age group, and then 10 through 12. Other Montessori secondary programs, that's some new language, secondary meaning middle and high school, often do 2 years, 2 years, and 2 years. But so far, we have one adolescent program with 5 students. I'm gonna try to move this, but I'm afraid of messing it up. Okay, you all can see it. You all can see it here. So understanding our families. No, it's not that. I was gonna try to move the Zoom, but technology being a little finicky, I'm afraid if I touch it,
Yeah.
recording or mirroring will happen. So in looking at our households, we determined that 92% of our families live within the Roanoke Salem Valley. So we're serving the Roanoke community. Most of our families are not brand new to our school, but have been here between 4 or 5 years. And a large percentage of our families have multiple students here. Okay, so just a snapshot that, people aren't coming and going. Do we want this number to be higher? We want average families to be here for 13 years or 16 years. That's the goal. So we come into infants and they stay through high school. That's the goal. And then of course we want everybody to have more kids and send all their kids here. But this is just to help you understand a little bit about your community. Our campuses. Well, actually, I should ask this question. How many of you knew we have 3 campuses? Okay, most of you. Not all of you. Interesting. So yeah, so actually, Salem Montessori School has 3 campuses. The infant toddler campus, which is down the hill, is, I think it's right there. Is it right there?
Yeah.
I think it's right there. Has 9 classrooms and it sits on 1.8 acres. Primary campus, where you currently are, has 7 classrooms and sits on 3.6 acres. I'm going to pop over to this 1.8 acre, which many of you do not realize, maybe not, is, hold on.
Yeah.
There,
Got it.
boom. We have an additional piece of land that may be part of our future, which is 1.8 acres right across the road. So that exists. What's it? They're currently woods. Yep.
Yeah.
And then the elementary and adolescent campus is where the original school started. So you saw that picture earlier on, and that is where we have our 1st through 8th grade. Yep. Ms. Valerie mentioned that we have a fairly large staff and faculty, right? So here's just a breakdown of how many adults we employ. So I won't read all this, but you can see we have 25 lead teachers, 31 assistants. Our early childhood, meaning our infant, toddler, and primary, have the most staff and faculty, and there's a couple reasons. One, we have the most classes, we have the most students. It's also where you have the lowest student to teacher ratio. So we need, for every child, we need more adults. So we have a large group of adults working with your early childhood students. And then, of course, as you get older, you need fewer, and we also have fewer numbers as of right now. But we still have, a nice number of people serving our middle and high school, or I'm sorry, elementary and middle school. And then, important to note, admin and leadership does not just mean executive leadership. People like Valerie and Chastity. This includes our maintenance and Ms. Cheryl, who works finance. So we have a large group of people behind the scenes, many of whom you probably don't know personally, may have just gotten an email with, but they exist and they are really important to making sure that this school runs the way it does. Okay. A couple of things interesting, just statistics that we wanted to bring up that you may not realize just because why would you think about it? Our average employee here has been here for 3.6 years. So that is a good number for a Montessori school. It's important noting that I think 3 people on our executive leadership team have been here for, 33 years, 28 years. So this number is essentially skewed by a lot of people that have come recently and people have come within the last year, but there are quite a few people on both the leadership team and the teaching team that have been here in double digits. So, looking at the health of a school, that's one thing you always look for. Do people want to stay? And there are a lot of people that have been here for many years. 100% of lead teachers have or are completed formal Montessori training. That's a really important piece. And I won't go down this rabbit hole too far again because time is limited. There is no trademark on the term Montessori. So I don't know why I say this, but this is what I say. I say, I could go buy a bus, rip out the seats, and that's my Montessori classroom. I could have them watching Scooby-Doo all day, every day, and that's a Montessori school. Nobody's going to come and tell me not to. So what differentiates something schools and Montessori schools is the commitment that they make towards their teachers of getting them training, getting them either formal or informal Montessori training, but getting them involved in Montessori. So the product that they're delivering is a Montessori product. So 100% of the lead teachers have or are completing formal Montessori training of some sort, and 100% of the leads and assistants have Montessori related training. Meaning that even if we've brought some people in recently, part of what they have state mandated is professional development. Part of what we do to get them started is getting them affiliated with Montessori. So that is a key component. So what we're trying to deliver is as good as it possibly can be. Now, that doesn't mean that it cannot get better. I will also say that. But that is one thing that differentiates us from many of the Montessori schools that slap the name on, but don't take that seriously. Financial health. So for those of you who work in different types of organizations, financial health, we can get really into the weeds, but this is not to tell you, again, go through budget line item, but to demonstrate that the allocation of resources is being done responsibly and that it is a healthy school. So when we talk about growth and what we want to do, you can feel confident that we have the means and the desire to do it. So each of the data points that I've pulled for this start in 2020, the school year 2020 to 21. So when I say that they've operated in the black every year since 2021, does not mean that, 2019 to 2020 was in the red. It just means that's as far back as I went. So they have been operating and been making good financial decisions since I started looking at it. Okay. 93 to 94.5% of the income comes directly from tuition, meaning we are not taking government subsidies. We're not taking, we're not doing many different things like a first step or some. There's so many different things that government offer, but part of what comes with that is a lot of restrictions. So again, that large number, 93 to 94%, come from what you as the parent pay to send your children here. And that's a healthy number. Now, some of the other pieces are things like the run and a couple other pieces, but again, those are minimal at this point. Our two biggest expenses, which again are typical of healthy schools, are salaries and rent. And so looking again over the course of those however many years, 2021 school year through 25, 13.5% of our expenses are taken up by paying rent, which as somebody that works with many schools, that is a healthy number. Right now, if we look and we see that number is 40%, essentially it's the equivalent of being house poor. Right, so we're paying a reasonable amount to occupy the buildings. And of course, that doesn't take into consideration a lot of the other expenses associated with it. But then again, this number right here is a very, well, it's a healthy number, 61% going towards salary. So, that's even a little bit high, but that demonstrates the commitment towards staff. Again, it does not mean that we can't do better or can't do things better, but if you think about these two numbers right here, almost 75% of the money, again, the money that you pay to send your kids here is going back to serve the kids, essentially. So both of these numbers, when I'm looking at a school, these represent healthy numbers when you're comparing apples to apples. Now, some people often ask, well, I'm a banker. I know that these aren't healthy numbers. I say, okay, well, great. Do you work in, school banking? Do you work in private education? And the answer is generally no. So a restaurant may be run differently, a car dealership may be run differently, but these numbers are numbers that I look at and I know we're in the black. I feel healthy and I feel confident that we're making solid fiscal decisions. Does that make sense? Anything anybody want to add? Cheryl, do you want to add anything as our
No, and when you're talking about black, I've been with the school
7 years?
Yeah, 7 years, there you go. And it's been running in the black since I came, and my spouse actually has been with Valerie since before these two buildings were built. And she was in the black then, and one of the reasons I came to work for Valerie is that my spouse said, this is a place where you want to be, where your talent will be recognized and you can help Valerie grow. And so when we're looking at 2020, I would say you could probably go back to 1993 and these numbers would stay true.
Yeah, and they do. I mean, you see there's not a lot of variation, right? So again, demonstrating a level of consistency. And so me, and working with many schools, whether this number is, 61% or even 51%, I want to know, is that consistent? Now, that being said, like any organization, there's always ways to do better. So doing better does not mean making this number higher or lower, but always asking ourselves the question, are we using it efficiently? What can we do better? Can we take those dollars and use them better for whatever? All of those are questions that we're actually currently asking, not because we need to, but because we want to, because we're interested in improving, okay? But again, that's much easier when you're in this position versus, obviously really far in the hole. So we're in a really good position. So when we talk about growth and what we want to do, hopefully it makes sense.
Cheryl's husband is our CPA.
Yeah.
Excellent CPA.
So this next question, how are we doing, is a really important question, right? So again, we talked about the fact that the reason why we're doing this is because we don't want to just show up, provide care, send your kids on their way. We want to know what we can do to continue growing in the future. I would suggest that that's the single most important question for any school, not just Montessori schools, is to ask that question, what can we do to maintain our commitment to continuous improvement? Because what might have worked 33 years ago may not work now. What might have worked today may not work tomorrow. So we always need to be asking ourselves the question, what can we do to get better? What can we do to better serve our constituency? What can we do to better serve children's needs? And let's face it, what children need now is different than what they needed even 10 years ago, even 2 years ago, right? Like we're dealing with a group of children now entering the primary and maybe first grade that grew up not going to school for the first couple of years because of COVID. That presents, again, not good or bad, it just presents a different set of challenges. So rather than trusting what has worked forever, or a long time, we're saying, okay, what can we do to serve these kids? So we asked you all the questions. How are we doing? And so I'm just sharing some data that came out of the surveys. And I will share that actually, I got 44 responses to the family surveys, which I'll give you guys a round of applause for whoever participated in that. If none of you did, then Miss Jennifer was sitting there like, over and over and over again doing it. But no, 44 people participated in the surveys. And that's actually a good number. I know it may not sound, when you think about 187 students, it may not seem significant, but when giving these surveys, and it was a substantial survey. You know, that is us asking you to, you know, basically give us extra time, which we know is finite and valuable, and to not just hit a bunch of buttons, but offer responses. And so we got some really good feedback. And so here's a little bit, we're going to share a little bit about what you shared. And then all of this in conjunction with what we're currently trying to do and what we're planning helps us make decisions of what direction to go. So 91% of the families that participated in the survey felt that we know their children well or very well, which is something I think is a strength of our school. So parents perceive that we know their children. And frankly, if we don't know your children and we're spending often 3 years with them, then we're doing something really wrong. When people were originally looking for the school, the 79.5% who chose Salem Montessori School for the facilities and the beauty of the campus, that was our highest indicator, interestingly enough. So people chose it. You know, maybe you didn't know what Montessori was, but you came in here and you said, hey, these are beautiful places. These classrooms look clean. It looks good. I think my kid can do well here. That was great. Or you chose that. 72% chose for the quality of the teachers, which is another good number. Interestingly enough, but not included here, is only about 60% chose it for Montessori. So part of what we talk about a little bit later is how do we re-educate our families about Montessori? So we'll get to that later. Now, another data point that's not included here are the vast majority, I think 90-some%, when asked, do you still maintain these reasons why you came or why you stay? The answer is yes. So it's interesting. As you can see, there's a theme. 91% are pleased or very pleased. So the two highest indicators out of 5, 4 and 5, are either pleased or very pleased with the teachers. So obviously, as administration and as leadership and as people trying to help plan, we recognize that teachers, A, are a strength and something we need to cherish and focus on. 72.8, and I guess this might be an interesting one, probably not for right now. 72.8 feel that they're adequately informed about student progress. Meaning, 7 out of 10 feel like they, inadequately, meaning 4 or 5 are adequately know what's going on. And then interestingly enough, I would have perceived that, well, I would like to see that number be higher, frankly. I would like for all of you, especially as your children are progressing and as we're trying to move into higher grades, it becomes increasingly important to know what children are doing, know what they're learning, not because you don't trust Montessori, but because essentially the stakes get higher. And I hate to say that, I love to say, you know what, my kid's like, your child's in middle school right now. I'm sure you always ask the question, is my kid going to be prepared to go into high school if it doesn't exist here? If high school does exist here, will he get into college? So even if you love Montessori, the pressure to know that they're at the very least not being put at a disadvantage grows. And so we as a school need to figure out, okay, how can we make sure that they know enough or have access to enough that they feel confident in what we're doing? Here we have a couple more things. There's only 2 slides here, so again, there's much more information, but we're going to try to keep this under an hour, which we're getting close to, not quite, but 29.5% of the families rated a 4 or 5 regarded contact with other families, meaning that's a very small number. Only 3 out of every 10 parents feel like they're getting either a 4 or 5, so a high level of contact, meaning they want more. You all apparently want more access to each other, which could be something as simple as a phone tree. I don't think that's what it means. I think it's more opportunities to engage with your community. Interestingly enough, 34.1, so that was the middle number. That was our highest indicator, number 3. So meaning, about 1/3 of the people felt like it was average or okay. And this is probably, well, actually, yeah, I'll just go out on a limb here and say this indicator right here is where I think there's the greatest opportunity for growth as a community. 40.9% of families feel they know about their child's or children's class and little about other classes. Meaning that parent that I mentioned earlier that was in toddler that came to the elementary class but didn't know they had an elementary campus, that's probably one of those folks, right? So 4 out of every 10 of our children feel like they don't know either enough or as much as they want to. So what can we collectively do to make sure our families know not just about what's happening in their children's class, but what's happening around the school? That is a great opportunity. And then 20.5% literally saying, I don't know, I know very little. So not just not enough, but I know very little. So when we get to some of our strategic initiatives of trying to create more community, trying to grow our school, here are two great opportunities. How do we make these numbers, or how do we make the numbers that are 4 and 5 that they know enough go up and make this number go down? Okay. Any surprises here from anybody? No? I know that, sometimes when you're doing this sort of presentation, you want to do the all the great stuff, and there's so many wonderful things about your school. And then you see this, you're like, okay, I wish we did better. But what's awesome is that we are doing really well, even with these numbers. So these are great opportunities to make our school better. Yes.
I just want to say, with that low number though, I think some parents want to be, in fairness, to be more engaged than others.
That's true.
So I think that's maybe the other side of the coin, is that maybe you could also ask parents, like, are you involved as much as you want to be? Because there's some parents who are just busy or just not as interested, and there are other parents who are really interested and really, so having that spectrum, maybe that other side of the coin, so it's not all on the school and not all on the parent either.
Yes, of course.
It's a partnership.
I mean, that's a great point. I think, well, we're going to talk about how to get involved.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
And I think there's a lot of people, and I appreciate the school because they don't force parents
Yeah.
to be involved. So we have like this meeting, you can come if you would like. And so I think it's a nice balance of
well,
having openness to be involved.
well, that's
Yeah.
a great point. I guess what I would say as somebody that's, an outsider becoming more and more of an insider is I would love for anybody at the school who wants to be involved to have the opportunity to get as involved as they want or remain as uninvolved. We used to talk about, it as like giving giving money. People have different means, right? So some families can give $1 million, some can't give $1. Some people have time, they can give hours because they're retired or not working. And some literally, they're lucky if they can see their kids 5 days a week, 5 minutes a week because they're, schedules. We get that. I would love for your entire community to be able to give as much time, get as much involved as they would like, and know the avenues to do that. So interesting enough, this is a really nice number. This is a direct question. How likely do you recommend our school to other families? Obviously, most people would recommend the school to the family, where the highest percentage is significantly more than double the second indicator saying they would recommend. So that is all great. You have a strong community. You have people that care about the school. You have people that would make the same decision again, and people that want to be here. Okay? And I'll tell you, this is not something to take for granted. Many schools have people that come because it's a safe place and it provides care, but people are here and they've, we talked about the majority of them the average has been here 4.5 years, I think it was, and they still want to be here and they do it again. That's a strong indicator of a strong community. We're obviously doing something, you all collectively are doing something really right. So then the question then becomes, where do we go from here? And this becomes a little bit redundant when we start talking about our strategic initiatives or things that we want to accomplish, but I'm just going to read them. And oh yeah, some of you haven't. All of these pictures are from your school. So, yes, Emily, is that your child or is that you? Is that your child? Okay, I thought maybe that was you.
Other two boys have been part of the pictures here.
All of them are.
Infiltrated the whole school system.
We spent a lot of time, interestingly enough, trying to find we literally went through it. We have some elementary, we have some, trying to find the right pictures to represent a good the whole school. But where do we go from here? We obviously want to continue providing high quality care. That's the number one priority, probably, right? Like more than anything, I guess you could say the number one priority is safety, but I think that's included in providing high quality care. So we're going to continue doing that. As mentioned, we determined that communication possibly may be an opportunity. So we want to first determine the type of communication the community wants and needs. A trick that a lot of schools and organizations fall into is they see that, they say, oh, we need to communicate more. We're just going to throw more at them. And that's not the answer, right? So how do we communicate what people need? How do we communicate the right amount? And I don't think we know. And I think that the world is changing in terms of communication. It could have been that a newsletter once a week was perfect 10 years ago, where now they need a 40-second video. So we need to determine what people need and then how to deliver it in a way that it's getting to the most people. So for example, they know how to get involved if they want to. We want to grow the school. This is I would say not all schools want to, but we want to. We want to grow it programmatically, meaning I'll talk about our strategic initiative. We want a middle and high school if it's financially viable and it makes sense and it's in alignment with our mission and vision. We also want to offer more programs within, meaning I'm going to use your elementary and maybe middle school. Right now in middle and elementary, they do a really robust robotics program, which is awesome. And I think that's one of the pillars of the elementary program. But like, let's say, for example, we had a group of children that really had a strong interest in pickleball or soccer or athletics or health or veganism, whatever it is. We want to be able to provide more programs to meet the vastly different interests and needs of our families. So we want to grow the actual programs, and we also want to grow what's offered within our programs. We talked about this idea of engaging the whole community. We want you all to feel more connected, whatever that means and however you want to be connected. And that is parents and parents, that's parents and administration, but we want you all to feel like a community, not 3 siloed campuses. And I'll tell you, that is not something unique to Salem Montessori School. It is really easy to, drop your kid off at elementary and then forget about anything here. So we got to figure out, how do we get these people talking? How do we get these people working? How do we get them engaged? And so more specifically, I'm calling them strategic priorities. This one of yours? Yeah. So here are some things that we've identified as strategic priorities. So what are we doing? And here's some more explicit ideas, and I'm calling them ideas because part of this means doing our due diligence, figuring out, do they make sense? Like developing, well, I should say further develop middle and high school, but basically saying, okay, going from these 5 students, how do we grow that program in terms of its number of students? How do we extend it into high school? And that is a conversation we're already actively pursuing. We talked about communicating with parents, in particular, based on that data point. Remember that, not knowing exactly what our students are doing. We want to figure out how to better communicate student progress. And again, that does not explicitly mean sending you a 12-page report card with a bunch of things that they've done, but basically giving you information, again, that you feel confident that your child is getting what they need. We want to sort of become more efficient with a whole school communication so you all know what's going on, so you have those opportunities to connect. We want to increase enrollment at each level. And then this is actually probably, well, I want to say our most important, but there's more. This is the most complex because there's multiple reasons. One, we want a larger learning community. We want that for various reasons. We want your children to have more students to, build their friends group with, more people to know. That's important. We also, and I think we talked about it right here, it gives us, I'll come back right up here. We want to have more financial flexibility. So at a certain point with schools, like many businesses, you have fixed costs, but the more students we bring in, the more financial flexibility we have that we can go back and provide more programs. So that soccer team that we need to hire a coach, or that cooking class after school, that gives us the flexibility to offer more programs. Or if we have a high school someday, we want to pay a calculus teacher. The calculus teacher is the single most expensive teacher in high school. I know that for a fact. So if we want to add high school, we need to have that financial flexibility. It also gives us the opportunity to encourage more socioeconomic diversity. And I think that's a really important, exciting one. Also on this survey, a lot of people indicated that, finances are a stress, which again, not unique to Salem Roanoke, not unique to this school. And so we want to be able to have some, more security, use some of our resources that we've used responsibly to provide opportunity for some students that might not otherwise be able to come, or support our existing families if they need help. We don't want you to leave our school because you can't afford it. That doesn't mean we can do everything with reason. So don't worry. I'm not saying we're not gonna give the house away, but we want to find ways to support our community. There's a saying that, you can't replace a Montessori child, meaning that child comes at 18 months and they stay with us through 4, and then they go to the public high school or public childcare kindergarten because it's free. That is a loss. It is a financial loss, but we lose those leaders. That is so important to us. And so what can we do for people who've just been holding on so long just to get to that? What can we do to support them, for example? So we want to increase our enrollment because it builds a community. It gives us more flexibility to support our existing population and new people in the Salem Roanoke area. And again, it gives us the opportunity to offer more programming. Last but not least is succession planning. And I talk about here setting the school up to thrive into the future. Succession planning usually means somebody is leaving. It does not, has no explicit meaning, except the reality is it's been here 33 years. Miss Valerie may live to be 120. She's only promised 115, so we have to, which is 80 years from now.
Yeah.
But no, the question is, what do we start doing right now to make sure that this school exists for another 33 years, another 50 years, another 60 years? And so that's part of why it's so important to look at this from a continuous improvement place is we can't be stagnant. We can't sort of just rely on the fact that this worked for 33 years. We need to figure out what can we do to start moving into the future. And that's what I mean by the succession plan. And that's something that I know that Valerie and her family and just they've all been thinking about it because it's a reality. So we are geared towards thinking about the future. Now, you are parents, and there are a couple of students here. A question is, what can you do? And so some of these things are more philosophical, some of them are a little more tangible. First thing you can do, and again, going back to that conversation about getting involved, express interest, right? So not everybody may be interested, but let's say that person was interested in, hey, I've noticed you don't have a soccer team. And I heard some rumblings that there's some kids that would love to play soccer. What can we do? Step one, right? Like get involved, express interest and willingness. 2, bring your expertise and interests. As some of them know, I have zero technological know-how. So if Miss Jennifer said, hey, Robin, will you help me with coding? No, just no, not even like, yes, if you help me, no, sorry, I'm just not going to. But I do, in fact, happen to be a good soccer player and a good runner. So maybe I can help with that. So bring your expertise and interest. We want you to not just do something because you feel like you have to, but because you feel passionate about it, you have an interest in it, you have an interest in sharing it. So bring your expertise and interest. Share the secret. I use this deliberately. Again, not unique to Salem Montessori School, but so many people in your community probably don't know that this little gem exists. And so whether it's a school event or an open house or whatever, tell people what your children are doing. And I'll say that with a caveat that I know that many of your peers or even your families or, for you as parents, your parents may say, why are you choosing to send your child to this non-traditional school? That may even be arguments, right? So I get that, but share the secret. So tell people about what's going on here. As groups, I talk about here forming committees, and Ms. Valerie mentioned that you're already doing that. But like, let's say, for example, you have that interest, and you know what, we really want to see that high school come to fruition, right? We can tell Jennifer every day, 3 times a day, and there's only so much Jennifer can do. Because she's, she can do a lot, but maybe not everything. But like, form a committee, get a group together to start helping with that work, start lifting some of the weight. So form the committees. And last but not least, which is kind of weird to say, but maybe it's the most important. Put yourself out there to learn more about Montessori. Why are you doing this? You may have decided to do it because they had beautiful buildings. It was clean and it was safe. Your kids may be happy. Now my kids are getting a little bit older, and so I'm starting to feel that little bug of like, well, are they going to be ready or not? That's real. But the more you learn about it, the more you're going to be able to feel confidence that what you're doing is a solid decision. And not only that, you're going to be able to advocate for it. You're not going to have as many questions. And so for so many reasons, however much time allows for, which again, time is valuable, learn more about what your children are doing. And there's so many ways to do that. You can do that. I know that the school even this year has a new emphasis on parent education, like a heightened emphasis, right? So we're trying to do things here to help you learn more about Montessori. But again, if you're interested, ask about it, right? There's so much out there. Read about it. Because I think that that's going to make your experience significantly different. How am I doing time? Oh, I have 1 minute. We did start 5 minutes. We did start 5 minutes late. Do I?
He promised 1 hour, but.
I thought. Oh. Oh, well, I was planning 1 hour. Going back to that communication. No kidding. No, I was like rushing. What do you think?
So you're good.
Oh, great. All right. Intermission. Everybody go get a snack. No, I'm kidding. No, and so we're actually getting towards a closing piece because again, we thought we were going to be out of here in 3 minutes. In closing, I wanted to share something about Marie Montessori. So this is a little Marie Montessori. because many of you might see her as an old lady, which she indeed did turn into an old lady. She said in Education and Peace, a wonderful book, which I'm sure you all can find as you're going back to what you can do, learn more about Montessori. She wrote, an education capable of saving humanity is no small undertaking. So think about that. I mean, what we're really saying here is saving humanity. And since I have an extra half an hour, I'm going to talk to you about the work of talking about partnership systems and partnership education, the work of Dr. Rianne Eisler. And so now you can get educated. No, okay, I won't go down there. She is anyway, she's an incredible woman, 95-year-old Holocaust survivor, does a lot of work with partnership systems. She's great, but we're not talking about her today. Maria Montessori said, an education capable of saving humanity is no small undertaking. It involves the spiritual development of man, the enhancement of his value as an individual, and the preparation of young people to understand the times in which they live. So, a couple things I want to share, and I may read it one more time. One thing that Maria Montessori, or people often get confused with Montessori, is this concept of spiritual. Maria Montessori was not, I mean, she might have been a spiritual person, but she was not promoting Catholicism or Islam or anything. When she's talking about spiritual, she's meaning much more the spirit of children, the spirit of light, the spirit of peace. Okay, so the healthy development of man, the happiness, the whatever word you want to put in there, is the preparation of young people to understand is the enhancement. Okay, let's read it again. I just lost my place here. The enhancement of his value as an individual and the preparation of young people to understand the times in which they live. I chose this in particular because this concept of to understand the times in which they live, that what we are doing is in fact helping them to understand the times in which they live, which to the point I brought up earlier, I don't know if there's ever been a time where it's been harder to understand the world in which we live in. And I'm not even going down the road of, politics. I'm talking about even just the rate in which the world is changing. The world is changing faster now than any time before. So what we can do is help them understand the time in which they live. That's what we can do now. And going back to what we talked about earlier, what we can do is prepare them to love learning, to be receptive to continuous learning, to be able to adapt with confidence and independence into the world they live. Right? That is what we can do. And so, not to undermine the value of math and reading, which we all know is important, what we're also doing is helping them develop those skills. And that's why we're here. And then I'm going to, now this is the real in closing. This is another quote from the more famous than Maria Montessori, Miss Valerie. She wrote, and I'm just going to read it. She wrote, I also believe one of our greatest strengths is our partnership between home and school. I think she might have said this already, but I'm going to read it again because it's worth reading. Our growth over the years has been made possible by the collaboration of volunteers. I should say volunteer. Oh no, collaboration of families, teachers, staff, and students. You have volunteered, served on committees, supported events, asked thoughtful questions, and trusted us with your children. That partnership is at the heart of who we are. And that is indeed why we're here today, that sense of partnership. I was kind of joking when I brought up Rianne Eisler, but she literally is the founder of this whole thing called Partnership Systems, the Center for Partnership. And Montessori education is partnership education. It is not an administrator and a teacher. It's administrator, teacher, parents, and children. So this is a partnership. And as we move forward, that partnership is going to be even more important. So there you have it. So had it been an hour, I would have been exactly on the dot. Thank you. But since we have a little bit of extra time, why don't we open it up for questions? Yes, sir.
You got some comments in the chat
Oh.
as well. So if you move the mouse a little bit and go down to the bottom.
I could probably I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
No, just go to screen. Yeah, go to where it's green. Yep, and then hit the little
Oh, that's a lot of chats. Oh, let's see. Oh, okay, some people they can see me and they can hear me. That's good. Oh, and then okay, and then we got. You might be able to mute all participants. For those of you watching, I was afraid to touch anything because getting it in presenter view plus recording plus that's a feat. My baby. So Sarah, I'm not sure which one that is. I think that was just recently. So probably one of those is your baby, Sarah. And those are our comments. But yes, well, sure.
And
Okay.
partnership that
Sure.
you talk about. Have you worked with any Montessori schools that are worker owned? And is that something you've explored as a possibility?
I can answer first and then you can. I have not a school. I worked with lots of different ownership structures, multiple owners, nonprofits, obviously, but never worker owned. But Miss Valerie?
Well, I have. Recently, well, actually, why I'm, partnering with the Montessori Foundation was I, contacted, Robin's dad or
It doesn't matter.
stepfather, yeah. Tim Selden about possibly becoming a nonprofit organization to see if that would help us grow and make us, strong and, secure and he said, no. He said, don't go there. And I said, okay, well, what other options? What do we have? What can we? And so we did look into an ESOP, which is employee
Sponsored owners, sponsored?
employee
Sponsor.
stock owner. Right. So, and that's still been on the table as a possibility. But after being with the Montessori Foundation and they do hundreds of schools and all different, we feel like today, right now, today, we have a lot of other options if we just grow the school. Like you said, our basic needs are being met right now. And so from here, we're so strong right now, and it just needs to take this foundation that we have and we need to grow it. It could be something else in the future, but he highly, highly recommended stay private. No, you don't get government assistance, you don't get, but
You don't get tax benefit.
you don't get the tax benefits, you don't get, but the growth possibilities are so much greater when we don't have other people holding the nonprofits. Just depends on who's on the board every year. Just, we say 33 years later, that core, that mission, that what you value, it goes all over the place, depending on who's on the board, year after year, who you bring. So, he said, stay away from that. He's seen a lot of mess with that. So the ESOP is still a possibility. You've looked into that as well.
There are a lot of components of nonprofits versus private and a lot of components of the ESOP that are really nice. The question is, again, like looking at, not even just looking at their school right now, but looking at the demographics of the employees. Does it make sense right now? And so to your original question, I have not seen it, and I've had a lot of conversations about it. I'm not saying I'm 100% opposed to it. It's not my decision to make, but it's just I haven't seen it.
I think we've heard a lot about teacher shortage. It's a big challenge, both from kind of daycares to even schools in terms of quantity, but also quality. But Salem really, I think we have great experiences with all the teachers that our child has been experiencing. And we saw in the survey that 72-something% of parents came here because of the quality of the teachers. So I'm really curious, what did Salem do right in terms of attracting kind of best teachers here, and what's the strategy to keep being really competitive in terms of attracting the right kind of a staff to take Salem further and developing the higher, especially the other programs?
Well, retaining and keeping, that's kind of why I, again, become involved with Montessori Foundation. But from the beginning, it's always been to find people who love children. You have to start with, I've had over 33 years, I have them come in, I work with them. They have to have this innate ability to just enjoy and love all children. If they have that, then I can work with and train them. Matter of fact, usually they embrace the Montessori philosophy. That's easy. If they don't have that core ability, they may have a degree, I've got it over here, but they don't really have that passion to be with children and educate children, all children. Doesn't matter where they are developmentally, but they just, if they have that core, I've gone miles with them. So that's what I have looked for, how to retain them, and we would like to, what we're looking into is how to pay better and better and better and more, you know, bonuses and, you know, just different strategies that we can do with tuition. Like how do you, but we're looking now at scholarship programs. I'd love for some, you know, Maria Montessori started with underprivileged children, you know, I'd love to get into that community, a percentage of, you know, something, or helping families that really would love for this to continue, but they just can't, you know, it just doesn't. So can we supplement, can everyone? No, there's not enough today, but again, you know, the growth is unreal. It's there. We just have to get there on all levels. We need to get there. Well, infants and toddlers were always bursting at the seams. Slow down the babies, but no, keep them coming. We love those babies.
One other thing that we're doing this year, a little different is, we as a leadership team have been doing hiring for attitude and changing a little bit of not being desperate in hiring, but hiring the right people for the roles and really looking for what we call our high performers versus low performers. And, you know, I've been in a lot of organizations where it's like, you look for that desperate hire. We just need a warm body in the room. And, our goal is definitely to find the right people that will embrace our mission statement and not us having to adjust to who they are.
And I would say as a long-term employee who's been here for about 11 years, I think the reason I've stayed is because I've seen the school is really dedicated to their purpose and their why, and that why being Montessori, and then seeing how the school invests in teachers to become better Montessorians and keeping that at the center of our work and our practice.
And the only thing I would add is, I mean, I think that part of it's getting, to be honest, I think part of it's getting lucky and finding really good people that are dedicated. And I think part of it's people fall in love with the school, and, you know, I may be able to go to the public school and get a, you know, another $1 an hour, whatever it is, right? But then I'm gonna have to go through the bureaucratic process of doing paperwork and blah, 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 and it's not worth it to me, right? So part of it's that. You know, but then it's of course just, you know, as Jennifer said, supporting them. So, you know, getting them trained. And we have a couple teachers in the room right now that have been sponsored through training. Now, that being said, as Ms. Valerie mentioned, one of the priorities moving forward, when we talked to about supporting staff or staff, I think we had in one of our strategic initiatives, is to become more competitive financially. We want to be able to provide them so they can, you know, not have to work a second job or not, whatever it is, right? So we want to put some effort into that. We also want to be strategic about getting them, you know, if they're interested in whether it's formal Montessori training or professional development, getting them access to better training, which is going to help them professionally. It's also going to help the school. I mean, it's actually, you know, the more money, not money, the more resources, and that also means time, we put into helping our teachers develop their practice. And we call Montessori a practice, like doctors or lawyers. The more effort we put into them developing the practice, the better the experience is for the children, the better the quality of the education, leads to higher retention. So we recognize that. And so that's why right now, that's one of our big strategic initiatives, is to support our staff. And I think that will further help keep and attract high quality educators. Any other questions?
Got one on the chat.
Oh. All right. Okay. I have a different experience working for nonprofits and serving on nonprofit boards where the mission organization leadership drives the organization and not the individual board members who provide support. Is that the main reason to not pursue a nonprofit status, or is there something I missed? Do you want me to tackle that one?
Sure.
I don't know. I mean, so Rachel, I don't know Valerie's reason necessarily. Probably, but when she mentioned Tim, one of the things that Tim Seldon would mention, and I think I mentioned this, I don't have a thing against ESOPs or nonprofits, but just recognize that they serve different purposes, but it's not just what you're talking about getting board members on board. It's a whole not a plethora, it's a whole basket of reasons why a for-profit in this situation is ideal to a nonprofit with a board. But if Valerie were to, for example, say, you know what, I really think that a board is the right decision because A, we can write off we're not gonna pay property taxes, we can now accept donations, and and then that can diffuse some of the decision making, so I'm not the one making all decisions. I would say, okay, cool. But right now, there are a bunch of different reasons, including some of this, that I don't think you're making that decision. And then, but Rachel, to your point, if Valerie did, or if anybody was going to start a nonprofit, I would strongly advise how you set up your board and keeping it a close-knit board where you're not gonna, again, I would say you're not gonna invite all the highest donors onto your board, because then you're gonna have, they can build that football field and throw away the Montessori. So if she decided she wanted to go to a board, not for the reason we're mentioning here, it would just be talking through what's a good way to do it. So Rachel, I think I answered your question. So it's not just that you missed something, it's just it's a much longer conversation of why it doesn't make sense right now for Salem Montessori School. And actually, ironically, a school I'm working with, another school in Virginia just went from a for-profit to a board in the last year. But it made sense for them, and they were in a very different situation. So it's not that it's a one size fits all, as I mentioned, it's, asking yourself the question, what makes sense for us right now, where we're at? Yes.
The statistic you had up there was that 93 to 94% of your funding comes from tuition. But where's that other 6 or 7% coming? Out of
I
curiosity.
think if I remember correctly, without looking at it, I think that's things like aftercare, pizza, fun runs, camp, like other,
Holiday care,
oh yeah, holiday care, like not, yeah,
Little stuff
supply
that can add up
fees,
yeah.
as a group.
Because it wouldn't be the love run. The love run is totally separate for staff.
The
development.
Love Run actually runs as a nonprofit under
Yeah,
Salem
yeah,
Montessori, so.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what it was, but yeah.
I have another sort of money question. The percentage, 13-ish% to rent, is that rent or mortgage? Because rent would be much more volatile.
It's rent,
It is rent, okay.
but both companies are owned by the
Okay,
same
so
person.
there isn't that concern about a volatility. of
No,
the
and it
rent
was
for the
done
year. Okay.
strategically,
Yeah.
kind of to help,
Yeah, that makes sense.
right, so they call it a brother-sister company.
I don't know the reason why, but when I was looking at it, it hasn't, I mean, unlike most organizations rather, it hasn't just gone up
Okay.
each year. It actually has,
Well, that was my concern. I saw the rent and thought, well, that can change very much depending on if you have the traditional landlord-tenant relationship.
That's the
It would be
nice
hard
thing
to
about her
predict.
owning it,
Yeah,
is that the
less.
rent, basically, it only goes up with property taxes
Right.
and, if an air conditioner goes out and that type of thing. But other than that, we can keep it controlled.
Okay.
What's the plan for the actual lot?
The extra lot?
Yeah. for the
Uh,
actual lot.
potentially, middle school, elementary, middle school, high school, yeah, we have drawings, we've gotten that far. For the woods and also for up on the hill is another possibility. We're going back to the city right now to see about getting maybe a little more property next to the woods, because I don't wanna lose the woods. We purchased the woods for nature exploration, for when the elementary friends used to be here in these 2 rooms, they would go over there every day. That's their playground. So I don't really want to take up all of the woods, and it would take all of the woods to build the campus there. So, the gentleman, who used to be a parent of the school, has been helping me, and he approaches the city and asks them these things before I have to go and stand before the courts he's asking about just we've already asked for the piece right next to it in between those, and they said no, because they want access to the property behind the woods. So now we're just asking for us, whatever that might be, another acre or two would give us a little more buffer, a little more room to build. Yes.
Part of the survey said that a lot of parents would do it again or recommend it to others. And I've noticed on, I think on Google Maps or other places like that, Salem Montessori School doesn't really have a presence. If you do want more demand beyond personal recommendations, I wonder.
So I can answer to that. We've actually hired, you'll notice that our website has drastically changed. And we hired a web developer that's going to get the Google presence. And if you, like just this week, I got Google sends out like an update of how your website's doing, and it's dramatically increased our presence online. For the longest time, Google Maps couldn't even find us. And so that's been one of our investments, and he's gonna also do our marketing. So what he explained to me is that a lot of times online, you think it's an article, but it's actually an advertisement will pop up on your Google. So you might start seeing us pop up little articles all over the internet.
Okay.
So I'm excited about that. And then, so when somebody searches Montessori, we will be the #1 Google thing for our region.
Oh, that's great. And please, you
It
should.
sounds like you're
Yeah,
experienced.
Remember that whole thing, remember that expert, your expertise?
I didn't want to interrupt. Please encourage everyone, because you have that in the survey, to give you those reviews early on if you do have a presence on Google Maps or wherever. Now's the time if you want to do that.
Okay,
I love it.
Yeah.
you'll help us.
Oh, I don't know what I don't know, actually here, this is actually, maybe you know the answer to this. I'm trying to think, I was at some school in the last 2 weeks. And they said that Google reviews weren't even allowed anymore for schools.
Really?
And I don't know if that's true or not. So anyway, but there are also testimonies, so whether or not it's a review or a testimony, I will ask you, for those of you who are happy with the school, or even if you're not happy, we'd ask you to share any testimony that you'd be willing to share.
Sure, I do have a question. So is there a plan to get all of your staff like with consistent email addresses as well? Because I see some with SalemMontessori.org versus some using.
So that has been one of our challenges too, is the .org for years only had a certain capacity. And so, and I won't name names, but we had a few staff members that didn't clear out their emails. And so they had like 100,000 emails. And so it was hogging it up. And so we decided to go to Gmail. Also, when we do Google like documents and not Excel sheets, you have to have a Gmail in order to create them and use them. So that became a challenge because the .org really didn't allow us that. So we still are really exploring that. What we hope is that a lot of our student information system will become where the conversations will go back and forth that you won't need to email. So we're working towards that.
Compass, right?
Yeah, Compass, Montessori Compass. Yeah, we're working towards that. We just felt like, especially having the Montessori Foundation with us right now, we didn't want too many changes to our families all at once. So we're kind of like trying to roll things out little by little so that we don't frustrate you as parents.
Anyone else?
Is that something that you can?
Maybe. You know, you could port your domain over, so you could still keep your .org, but you would be able to work with, you know, Google. Office.
So yeah, if you give a business card, you can share with me afterwards. That would be wonderful. That has been a struggle since I've been here.
I'll tell you one silly story that well, in order, so putting this together, I keep on hearing about Canva. Have you all heard of Canva? I keep on hearing about Canva. I tried to do this in Canva. It didn't work. I literally, last week I was with a bunch of adolescent kids and I literally was gonna find time so they could teach me how to do Canva. I couldn't even figure out Canva. So I went back to PowerPoint. So when you're talking about domain, I'm like, I don't know. I'm not an expert in that. That was not my guess. All right, well, thank you all for joining us. It sounds like even just within this hour and a half that there are some different ways that we could get involved. And so I strongly encourage you to talk to Valerie or Chastity or Cheryl or Jennifer, anybody here that help any way you can. And I really appreciate you all giving us an hour and a half. And I hope that at the very least, this was first of a series of conversations where we bring you in, where you feel like you know a little bit more what's going on. Again, this is all in service of, we want you to feel like a community. We don't want you to feel like, again, siloed campuses or siloed groups of parents and administrators. We want you to know what's happening as much as we can. And so I really appreciate you all doing that. And I hope that at the very least you feel like you got something from that. So thanks so much for joining us. And thank you for all of you who joined us.
Make sure to sign.
Turn it off.